Texas grapefruit, hill country peaches, Mexican plums. None of your favorite produce would be possible without what we call pollinators. Brian Cox with the Davey Tree Expert Company joins us now with the top 5 trees to plant in your yard to attract those pollinators. Good morning. It's great to see you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You need some trees for a lot of reasons at this time of year.
Yes.
So just explain pollinators, why they're so, what are they and why they're so important to our everyday life.
Sure. Pollinators are very important to our everyday life. Over 30% of our food crops require pollinators to produce their fruit and veggies. So, grocery store would look quite different without them.
Wow, yeah, the healthy stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And even across the planet, 85% of plants need pollinators just to reproduce and stay alive. So very important to our existence and the planet.
Okay, so when you say pollinators,
yes.
What are some examples? What are we talking about?
So some good examples would be a lot of insects, of course, bees, number one. They have the capability of actually carrying pollen back to their hive as a food source. Butterflies, wasps, ants, hummingbirds even. Are pollinators, and then even in desert and tropical climates, bats can be considered to be pollinators.
I never would have thought of a bat. Some of those other ones I would have, but not a bat. Okay, so there are actually trees that you could add to your property that look great and also support these pollinators.
Sure.
So what are some examples of those trees?
Absolutely. First of all, I would go native if you can. That's more important. You'll have a better success rate and happier trees. But one of my favorites is any kind of oak species, really. We all know they produce a lot of pollen in the springtime. It gets all over our vehicles and houses and things. But that's important. That's important for the insects as a food source, and it's also important to reproduce trees.
Okay, well,
so that's number one.
So that's so interesting because
important.
we have big live oaks around.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's so annoying when they do all that pollen, but now you know it really serves a really good purpose.
And as they mature, those trees, if you plant a small one, as they mature, they become shelter for pollinators over the winter. Very important.
What are a couple others?
Another good one would be Crepe Myrtle. I know there's a lot of crepe myrtles around, but I like crepe myrtles because they bloom later and they will provide that food source and that pollen later into the summer, even into September. The long blooming period is important for that. So
all right.
That's a good one.
So is now a good time, or it's too hot right now
way
to plant
too hot
a tree,
to plant,
right?
unfortunately,
so
yes.
What's the best practice for planting a tree if you want to do this?
So I would recommend waiting until fall as far as the time period goes. Secondly, location. You don't want to put a tree underneath a power line or too close to your house. I usually recommend 15 feet away. And then in the actual planting process, of course, depending on size and species and everything, but you want the hole to be at least a couple of times wider than the actual root ball. Lots of water and mulch, of course, to keep that soil good and moist.
Okay, these pollinators that we talked about, how do you keep them coming back?
Well, the best
Come back this year.
I like to, if we're concentrating on pollinators, I recommend planting in clumps so that you have a larger amount of flowering plants to attract them. And then having those late season flowers like the summer and the fall and the late summer like the crepe myrtle to keep them around longer.
Okay, so you mentioned live oak, crepe myrtle.
Yes.
Any other
Sure.
good ones?
Magnolia, redbuds, vitex are really good. Another long blooming season for vitex as well.
Oh, but magnolias are gorgeous too.
Yes, absolutely. Large white leaves.
Yeah, their leaves are absolutely beautiful.
Evergreen, so you get that green all year long.
Yeah. Well, thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
interesting. Really appreciate it. Okay, for more information, you can visit davey.com to learn more about tree planting and about tree health.